Luckily, we got the photos before Harrison wrecked his car, because man, this thing was pretty sick.
This was my stupidity. I'm an idiot. My fault.
It was dark out.
I ran over my camera gear, so I'm an idiot, you know?
You what?
Yeah. Last time we went wheeling, he broke a tie rod because somebody ran him off the road, and then I ran over my camera gear.
Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Glad to have you here. And if you're new here, hey, consider subscribing. We tell a bunch of stories. My background, I'm a professional automotive photographer, been that way for the past 2 years now. Shot for like Porsche Experience Center and quite a few Porsche aftermarket shops. Kind of my background, and I love Porsches. They're just kind of my niche, my bread and butter. But I also do shoot other cars here you'll see on the channel occasionally. I do own 2 Porsches, and we're going to talk about the second one I just bought here soon. But we'll save that for another episode. Today's episode, we're going to talk about Harrison. Harrison and his Porsche, the pink pig that he wrecked, but it was luckily after this shoot. So to set the stage of the photo shoot that we did with Harrison, I was experiencing one of the busiest times of my life. I was working for a different company that was in the health tech space. We were a startup, and I was pushing 60 hours a week or so in that. I had my own personal business that I was doing side development for. At the time we were running Try Hard, a t-shirt company I was forefronting, and then we had kind of the on and off again YouTube things I was doing. But Harrison had approached me talking about going out to shoot at the Salt Flats with a couple supercars, and I was like, oh dude, I cannot pass up this opportunity. So I had to move a couple things in my schedule around to make this work. But luckily, I found time. Well, really, I made it out of thin air, I think. But yeah, it was quite a squeeze that we had to do for this. Essentially, the idea was, and this was in summer, so we had longer evenings. Right after work, I'd book it over to meet Harrison. We would head out from a location out to the Salt Flats and meet up with the supercars there. We get there, the trip goes swell. I realize how smooth the first generation Cayenne is, or I think it's maybe second generation for the pink pig. But man, like Cayennes are just built so freaking well. I never realized how well they're built until I actually rode in one. The smoothness, the highway, and being such an off-road capable vehicle that is so just luxurious. Oh, it's the perfect commuter, I think, in my opinion. One of the perfects. There's a lot of them out there, but it's one of the perfect commuters. We had to rush this shoot because we didn't have a ton of time. And we get there, there's an Aston Martin, there's an Audi R8, but for me, the focus of today is Harrison's pink pig. This car is just, it's not expensive, right? When you think about it, it's probably, I think he spent under $10,000 on the car, and then a few $1,000s modifying it, and the wrap and livery and all this stuff. So maybe you're mid tens to 20s thousands in the car already. But when you think about it, that's pretty affordable. And I was shooting next to an Aston Martin and an R8, both cars that are around the 100K range. But the car I wanted, man, the car that I just wanted to focus on was this pink pig, right? So I do shoot with the Aston Martin and the R8. I get a couple of those photos, and I think I did a swell job getting those shots. We're racing on the Salt Flats, which, if you don't know what the Salt Flats is, it's the premier spot for a lot of automotive photography. Ferrari's been out there, Porsche's been out there, every brand has been out there. Lamborghini's been out there. They've all shot their cars at the Salt Flats at some degree and point, and they've also tested their vehicles at the Salt Flats. A lot of people set land speed records at the Salt Flats, and that's because it is as described. It's miles and miles and miles of flat land that's covered in salt. That's all it is, really. And so it's one of the most beautiful places to shoot photos. And another aspect that makes it really good for cars is the light reflects right off the ground because it's white, so it acts like a bounce. So everything's evenly colored in a sense. It's beautifully photographed, or photogenic, I think you would say. And it lends itself to shoot large items like cars, for this instance, pretty well, just because of the lighting, the setting, and your backdrops and everything. So I get done with the Aston Martin and the Audi R8. Now it's time to shoot the pink pig. So to give you guys an idea of how I shoot photos, I always incorporate motion. Motion has to be a key element in shooting cars for me. Just because what do cars do? They move. They're cars. They're automotive things. If you want to go to a museum, you can shoot a car static and whatever. That's cool. There will always be museum pieces and there will be photographed endlessly till the end of time, right? But it's very, we have a short amount of time to shoot cars in their prime while they're working and functioning and throwing around dirt, and people don't like treat them like museum pieces. And that's what I want to shoot, right? Because eventually in the future, all these cars are going to be gone, destroyed, or collectors. And that's a tragic story for all cars, but it is the story for all cars. You know, look at the Model T, right? Model T now, if you find one working and functioning, you're not going to see people throwing around. But back then when it was new and people thought they were coming out endlessly, I guarantee you'd have a few people jumping them. So all in all, it was a fantastic experience. And it was one of my favorite photo shoots I've taken today, just for how fun it was. And shortly after this, the supercars have gone because it's dark, and it's just me, Nick, who's from Canada, who came all the way down here to shoot with Harrison, and Harrison, and I know he goes by MDX Overland. I'm so sorry. It's another gentleman. He's recently transitioned into a Toyota now. He had a Volkswagen out there, but it was pretty cool. But you know, it's the four of us going out in the desert, and we just had a fantastic time mobbing around in the dirt in the dark. And there was this one opportunity where we were driving side by side, and we're on the highway, me and Nick, and Harrison is on the low road. So we're at a height advantage, and we're hauling. He's hauling off-road because the low road's on dirt, and we're on like kind of a paved segment, but we're going an undisclosed amount of speed because I don't know what the speed limit is. All right, last chance. Here we go. You ready, Nikki? And I had to take that opportunity to take that shot. I don't think I did the shot justice. I mean, you can judge for yourself by these photos, but I'm so glad I did take a shot at this moment because it was just such a cool, I remember seeing it in my head and then like looking through camera, and there's no way to, at the time that I learned to shoot that better. I think what I would have done better is exposed properly for highlights, and then shot one dedicated to shadows, because how I was shooting that at the time, I was trying to get both the highlights and the shadows. And if you know anything about photography at this point, you know, your highlights are going to be overblown if you want to get the shadows, or your highlights are going to be exposed, but you're not going to get any detail in the shadows just because it's so dark and your contrast is so high between what's light, being the lights, and the dark shadows. Anyway, I would have tried a different approach had I shot it again, but I think I did what I could do at that moment, and got some pretty cool photos, I'd say so myself. After this, I had jumped into Harrison's vehicle, and I wanted to take a ride, and we weren't ready to go home yet. We wanted to try do some offshoots on some off-roads. And if you guys know, the salt flats are surrounded by mountains, so you can get to a mountain range pretty dang fast and close. And we got to a quick little mountain range and started going off dirt road. Nick had stayed behind. I think he was working on something with his vehicle, maybe I think he might have done a card export or something like that he was waiting on. But he had stayed behind, and we make some unwise decisions off-road, I'll say.
I would imagine this like 20 years ago how gnarly this was. This is gnarly right now. Ooh, that came up quick.
Yeah, that was fast.
We're good. Their suspension seems to have done its job.
Plug that suspension in.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Oh, never mind. The air suspension is a little down in the front.
The thing you got to know about Harrison is he's the kind of guy that pushes it constantly. That's his personality. He pushes the limits constantly. It's awesome. And the thing about the Cayenne is it makes you feel very capable. After driving one for myself off-road, I realize how how capable you really feel in a Cayenne. It's got the power, it's got the nice ride suspension, and it's got a bunch of the performance features and the handlings that just makes it feel like a trophy truck right from the get-go. And so that all mixed with Harrison's, I wouldn't say recklessness, I would say need for adventure, pushes him to do some questionable decisions, we'll say. And we were going balls out speed on this dirt road, and we hit this bump, and it's boom. Like, I thought we were done for. I thought the front end of the car was gone. I just thought it felt like somebody just grabbed the front end and ripped underneath what was underneath it off. And he has a moment of, oh, you know, we're going to keep this PG, but oh shiz. And and I just remember looking at him and I'm like, well, I got to call my wife because we're probably not going to come home anytime soon. But lo and behold, the car was still drivable. We were still functioning. So Harrison doesn't skip a beat and keeps driving. And I can't remember if it was Nick or if it was Harrison once he got out of the vehicle, but somebody had said, oh, dude, you're slammed. And we look, and the wheels, the tires are touching the wheel well, practically riding on it.
Yeah, I may have blown the front bags. Well, yeah, it's like trying to air them up. Not doing okay.
We thought we popped the bags. That's what we thought we did. But we ended up actually just driving home as it was, which was surprising. Harrison was willing to chew up tires just to get home. And we were kind of looking at solutions to get new suspension for the car on the way home.
Run over. This was my stupidity. I'm an idiot. My fault. This wasn't any sort of mistake, mishap.
It was dark out.
I ran over my camera gear, so I'm an idiot, you know?
You what?
Yeah.
So we get back on the highway, we start driving, and we have to go and get gas, probably about 30 minutes, 40 minutes into the drive at this point. And surprisingly, we get out of the vehicle and the suspension is lifted. It's like, fine. And it was like, wait, what? I remember they got out of the vehicle and they said, dude, it's fixed. And I get out and I'm like, no way. Oh my gosh, it's totally fine.
Wait a second, did a miracle happen? Look at it. Yeah, the front's aired up now. Are you serious?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. Wow.
Dude, call that guy in Brazil and say, I don't need it, because he's up at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, dude, he's about Right. Well, yeah, he was hypothesizing that maybe there's some sort of release valve on like a very hard impact. It'll just kind of blow the bags to save them.
What do you know?
That'd be very nice if that's the case. Well,
that would be very nice.
We all had come to the conclusion that it was German dark magic that had inflated the airbags again as we were driving. And so Porsche must be powered by persistence. You know, we all had a good chuckle about it and ended up home, and I ended up with some really good photos. Now, shortly after this trip, in the winter, Harrison did crash the vehicle, and it kind of, it really sucks because, I mean, for him and everything, he has a video detailing the crash as well if you want to go. Again, Harrison's the kind of guy that pushes limits. It's not a surprise, but at the same time, it's not something you want happen. Luckily, he's okay. You know, everybody's okay in this scenario except for the car, and they were able to get the car back. But had I not taken the opportunity to go out and get the photos with him and the pink pig, I would have been kicking myself to this day. And that's the whole point of like today's video, is you just don't know when it's going to be the last hoorah, right? So shoot what you can, do what you can, use the cars and use them how you want while you can, because unfortunately, you know, these things are perishable. They're moving large vehicles, so I mean, they're bound to crash, or and the ones that do survive are bound to get sold to collectors at some point, which is sad. You know, it's part of the reason why I love the 911 G bodies so much, is because they're still relatively cheap. They're not the 964 prices yet. They will be. But that's the good thing about owning a Porsche, but that's also the bummer thing about owning or buying a Porsche at these days, like old Porsches specifically, is everybody's realizing the value now. And that's kind of with a lot of cars too. A lot of cars that were really cool are now being realized for their value. And that's a shame to see them used as collector pieces or investment tools. And but that is the way it is. You know, that's kind of the history of all things. So shoot while you can, shoot what you can while you can. And if you're an owner or a driver, hey, drive it hard and then sell it off, pawn it off to the next guy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I really do appreciate your viewership. I have to give a big shout out to our sponsors because they help us keep going on this channel. PMB Performance, thanks for fixing my cars, man. PMB Performance is a great European automotive shop that fixes just about any air-cooled Porsche you can find. They do a ton of great work on 914s. We've got a ton of videos with them, so you can check them out down below as well. Pelican parts, man, they're hooking me up with an alternator, so gotta love them. Pelican, thank you guys so much. You're saving my vehicle. We get it in tomorrow, so I'm so stoked to be able to drive the 911 again. And then I also want to give a shout out to Braid Wheels. Braid Wheels hooking us up with wheels. Of course, you need wheels to drive, so thank you so much, Braid. I'm super excited to get those on the 911 Safari build. And as for that, guys, that's been this episode. I really appreciate your viewership. Subscribe if you haven't. Statistics say that most of you aren't, so hey, change that. And check out some of the other videos. But until then, I'll catch you in the next episode. So I just wanted to show you what we have for sampling. We have the subscription button right here, which is very nice. I do recommend, highly recommended. Not just me, but everyone subscribe highly recommends this button. And we also have some videos right here if you want. I think we've got a cool one right here. This one's really cool, depending on what you like. If you're cool, you'll want to watch this because it's cool. But you know, this one's also a banger, so there's that. So you know, just kind of whichever you want. I personally, I'd pick this one. No, I'd pick, well, maybe. Depends on the mood. I think right now I'd pick this one.